Hello, my name is Shirley, and I'm a 31-year-old office worker. A year ago, I married a man named Mason, whom I met on a blind date. After a year and a half of dating, he proposed. While I had always dreamed of settling down, I felt our engagement was a bit rushed, but I accepted his proposal nonetheless. Looking back, I realize I should have approached the situation with more caution. Shortly after we tied the knot, Mason announced he was switching jobs. I was taken aback and asked him why he'd made such a sudden decision. He explained that his previous job didn't allow him to fully utilize his talents. What shocked me even more was when he revealed he had already resigned and would be leaving at the end of the month. Luckily, he found another job quickly, but the pay was less than what he had been earning. At first, I wasn't too worried since I was also working, but then Mason started pushing me to quit my job. I might have considered it if his new salary had been enough to support both of us, but with the pay cut, that was far from the case. He kept insisting that his income would increase soon, but without any timeline or guarantees. Quitting felt too risky. We needed my paycheck to save for the future and cover our essential expenses like rent and car payments. It just wasn't feasible to rely solely on Mason's reduced salary. One evening, Mason handed me divorce papers, seemingly to intimidate me. "You know I'm ready for this whenever," he said defiantly. I urged him to calm down and reconsider his words, but he got up and retreated to his room. This confrontation left me contemplating the hasty decisions I had made and the unexpected turns my life had taken since meeting Mason. I firmly told Mason I wouldn't quit my job until his salary improved. At first, he seemed to accept my decision, but the subject kept coming up. Every time he mentioned it, I reiterated my position. Now, a year into our marriage, his salary hadn't changed, yet he still pressed the issue. "When are you going to quit?" he would ask. I often felt tempted to respond sarcastically, but I held back, knowing our financial stability depended on my income. If quitting my job was so important to him, I thought he should focus on advancing his career to earn a better salary. Over time, I began to understand why Mason was so insistent about me leaving my job. It became evident during our visits to his parents' house. Whenever we were with his mother, Martha, Mason would express concern about easing her life. She would thank him, and then he would look at me meaningfully, as if urging me to resign. He suggested his mother needed help, but Martha was far from helpless. She was healthy and active, even working a part-time job that funded her hobbies and social life. Clearly, she didn't require my assistance. Yet Mason continued to push the idea. If only one of us could be home during the day, we could check on Mom daily, he said one day. It felt like he envisioned me visiting Martha every day, which seemed both overwhelming and unnecessary. I confronted Mason directly, asking him what he expected from me since Martha was perfectly capable of taking care of herself. He listed off mundane tasks like doing housework or running errands, making it clear he had expectations about how I could contribute. However, none of these responsibilities seemed to warrant me giving up my career. The constant cycle of requests and explanations was exhausting. I needed Mason to understand that while I was willing to support his family when necessary, sacrificing my job without a compelling reason was not a decision I could take lightly. "But Martha has her part-time job and spends most of her days out with friends, right?" I pointed out when he suggested I could handle the housework during the day. His response baffled me. Was he actually implying I should become his mother's maid? Mason was obsessed with maintaining a certain image, especially in front of his parents. If he cared so much about taking care of them, why didn't he handle the household chores himself? Despite his insistence, I remained resolute about not quitting my job. I also chose not to visit my in-laws on my days off, although I did make an effort to see them during major holidays like New Year's. Reflecting on our visits, I noticed a troubling pattern. Mason frequently delegated tasks to me. He'd ask me to tidy up, assist his mom, or run errands, and I resisted each request. When he suggested I go to the store, I would retort, "Don't you know this area better than I do?" His response was always the same: "It wouldn't look right if he did it himself," a rationale I found both puzzling and manipulative. It seemed he was more interested in controlling the situation and projecting an image of familial care than in genuinely caring for either his parents or me. As time passed, my perception of Mason began to shift. It became clear that he was more invested in appearances than in affection or respect for me. When I finally confronted him about why he didn't pitch in or even consider quitting his job to care for his mother, his reaction was revealing. He looked disgusted and uncomfortable, saying, "That's not something I'm supposed to do. I'm giving you these instructions so my mom will think you are a considerate, useful wife. I hope you realize how kind I am being to you." His words were telling. Essentially, he wanted to offload all the demanding tasks onto me while showcasing his virtue as if it were an extraordinary achievement. But I was not his servant or subordinate, nor did I deserve to be disrespected in front of my in-laws. It became increasingly clear that Mason's priorities were misaligned, valuing appearances over genuine partnership and support. If Mason continues to make unreasonable demands, I refuse to stay silent. I will assert myself. Despite countless discussions, he remains unchanged, constantly pestering me with the same old question: "Are you going to quit your job?" Every time we visit my in-laws, he bosses me around just as he always has. I finally reached my breaking point and knew it was essential to have a serious conversation with him. "We need to talk about our future," I said, trying to steer the conversation in a more constructive direction. "What are you even trying to say?" Mason snapped, clearly irritated. "I'm honestly fed up. I'm tired of you repeatedly asking me when I'm going to quit my job, and I'm exhausted from the pressure to take care of Martha." I laid out my grievances. "Why do you feel that way? You're my wife, and it's your duty to care for your husband's parents." Mason shot back. "Don't you think that's a huge responsibility to place solely on me? Shouldn't you, as their biological child, be the one helping with housework and caring for your parents?" I challenged, confronting his outdated beliefs. "No way. It's the wife's duty to do it. Are you the kind of person who doesn't care about family?" he accused, visibly upset by my resistance. "I'm disappointed to hear you say that," I replied, seizing the moment to highlight the double standard. "Let me ask you this: how have you been taking care of my parents? If I asked you to look after them, would you do it then?" Mason stared at me, blankly trying to comprehend the parallel. "What are you saying? Why should a husband take care of his wife's parents?" "So does that mean you won't take care of my parents now or ever?" I pressed, trying to underscore his inconsistency. "The husband's parents and wife's parents are completely different," Mason replied, missing the point entirely. "What difference does it make, anyway?" "I don't get it," I said, feeling exasperated. "I didn't realize you were so clueless. It's like talking to my old boss." "What are you saying?" Mason asked, confusion etched on his face. "I'm saying that your parents should come first, and you need to help take care of my parents too," I replied, trying to stress the importance of mutual support and equality in our responsibilities. I felt the need to clarify further, so I exclaimed, "So you only prioritize your own family by blood? I'm so disappointed in you. I won't be visiting your parents anymore." "Why would you do that? Enough is enough. I'm the one who wants you to stop this nonsense," he shot back. "No way. How dare you talk back like that? My mom is right," Mason retorted, his temper flaring. "Ha, Mom was talking about you. She said you're a badly behaved husband. That's why she gave me this." He pulled a piece of paper from his bag, revealing divorce papers. "What? You already had divorce papers ready?" I gasped, shock washing over me, but Mason seemed oddly proud. "See? I scared you, didn't I? I'm prepared for this at any moment. So think about what you just said. he declared smugly before retreating to his room. Unbelievable. Why is Mason being so selfish? That triumphant look on his face made it clear that the divorce papers were just a threat to manipulate me into compliance. The fact that Martha was involved only added to my suspicions. Mason was acting like a puppet for his mother, trying to control me while following her orders. It was ridiculous. I refused to let Mason have his way. How could he not see that our marriage was in jeopardy with his behavior? His lack of understanding only irritated me more. Mason had prepared the divorce papers and handed them to me, complete with witnesses, including Martha and his friends. This meant I could sign and file them whenever I chose. The next day, after Mason left for work, I filled out the divorce papers and submitted them to the city office. As a precaution, I also filed a notice of non-acceptance of the marriage certificate. I called my parents to explain the situation, knowing Mason might threaten to file a marriage certificate on his own. When they learned that I had prepared the divorce papers, they were initially shocked but fully supported my decision. Outraged by Mason's behavior, they immediately offered to help me move my belongings. Taking a leave from work, I had my parents come over, and we relocated all my things to their house while Mason was away. I decided to stay with my parents for a while. It was the first time in a long time that I felt truly comfortable and at ease in their home. Reflecting on my marriage, it became glaringly clear that Mason had never contributed his fair share to household chores. I was the one cooking dinner after long work days and handling all the cleaning and laundry on my days off. On top of that, he expected me to care for his parents, which was simply not feasible. That evening, Mason called me, likely just back from work. "Hello. Hey, where are you right now?" he asked. "I'm at my parents' house," I replied. "Oh, why would you go back there without my permission? And where's all your stuff? Don't tell me you're staying the night," he questioned, his tone revealing surprise and selfishness. I almost laughed at how oblivious he was to the seriousness of the situation, thinking I was merely staying overnight when I had taken most of my belongings with me. "I'm not coming back," I said firmly. "What are you talking about? Come back here and make me some food," he demanded. "Make it yourself," I replied, ending the call. I couldn't entertain a conversation about divorce with him if he continued to treat the situation so dismissively. I decided to wait for Mason to come to my parents' house, blocking his number to give myself some much-needed peace. A week later, he showed up, accompanied by his parents. The atmosphere was tense as we gathered in the living room, 3 against 3. "How could you do this? How could you leave without my permission?" Mason demanded, incredulity and accusation dripping from his voice. "You were treating me like a housekeeper," I replied, standing my ground. "All I ever asked was for you to take care of your family responsibilities." "That's not true. What kind of wife am I if I don't take care of?" Before he could finish, Martha shot me a fierce glare, causing my father to tremble with barely contained anger. I quickly intervened. "Mason told me to quit my job and take care of Martha, claiming it was my duty as his wife. Yet when it comes to my own family, he expects me to handle everything alone. Ultimately, he wants obedience and uses me to care for his parents while taking credit for it. That's why he prioritizes his parents over mine." "Have you heard Mason say these things?" Martha continued to glare, but Liam looked confused, clearly unaware of the extent of Mason's demands. "Let me clarify," Mason interjected, suddenly brandishing the divorce papers and claiming it was all Martha's idea. "Why would you suggest that?" Liam asked, surprised. "Oh no, it's because Camila has an attitude problem," Martha stammered defensively. "And did you say that Camila's parents aren't a priority?" I pressed, refusing to back down. "Well, it's only natural that your parents come first," Martha retorted. "Don't be absurd. I came here to support you after hearing about the unfair treatment Camila endured, but now it seems you're the one at fault." Don't hide behind her parents' authority to get your way, Liam said, making Mason visibly shrink in his seat. Liam then turned to me and my parents, apologizing sincerely. I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by my foolish son. I will have a serious talk with him. Liam, you're not to blame at all, so please don't apologize, I replied. Thank you for your kind words, but there's something else I need to say. I turned to Mason, who looked increasingly anxious. The divorce papers you gave me, I've already filed them. We're no longer married. Mason and Martha both turned pale, shock etched on their faces. Why did you file them without my permission? Mason demanded, clearly flabbergasted. You told me I could file them whenever I wanted. Besides, you had already filled out your part and had Martha sign as a witness, I calmly explained. Mason seemed utterly at a loss for words. Seeing the tension escalate, Liam could no longer hold back his fury. Mason, you're using divorce as a threat, he shouted, and in a moment of rage, he slapped Mason across the face. Martha gasped, clearly shaken by the sudden violence. Liam then turned to me, his expression softening. I sincerely apologize that you had to witness this, he said. You have every right to divorce this fool. On behalf of Mason, I am truly sorry for the damage he's done to your marriage. With a firm grip on Mason's collar, Liam demanded apologies from both him and Martha before ushering them out of the house. After they left, I thanked Liam for stepping in. He reassured me that all of Mason's assets and property would be transferred to me without any complications. Given my higher income and the effort I had put into managing our household, it was a relief to know that I would secure everything from our marriage. In the following days, I learned that Liam had divorced Martha, clearly disgusted by her actions during our confrontation. I also ran into a colleague from Mason's old workplace, who revealed some surprising news. Mason had been underperforming at his job and often faced harsh criticism from his boss. In a fit of defiance, he had resigned and switched jobs, which only deepened my frustration. Instead of taking responsibility for his shortcomings, he continued to blame others, likely contributing to his lower pay at the new job. Now, I feel a sense of relief at having left him. I've rented a cozy apartment and am enjoying my newfound independence. Work is going well, and I recently received a raise. At this point, I'm not interested in pursuing relationships and prefer to focus on my career. Mason always prioritized appearances over actual abilities, maintaining a facade at home while failing to grow professionally. It's disheartening how many spouses use divorce threats as a means of control, thinking it gives them power, but it's a grave mistake. I hope they come to realize their folly and find happiness on their own. As for me, I'm grateful to have moved on from Mason and look forward to the day when I'm ready to meet someone special.